Hi everyone, I hope you're enjoying our win in the closed Sicilian series. Again, we're looking at it from the white perspective. Here's another game in the 6 bishop e3 variation between Lubomir Ljubojevic versus Amador Rodriguez with the black pieces. This took place in Bill 1985. So we have e4, c5, knight c3, knight c6, g3, g6, bishop to g2, bishop g7, d3, e6, and bishop e3. And we already see and have discussed this early attack here on c5, which is in itself not too serious, but White's plan is just to simply organize a battery here with the bishop and queen and exchange off Black's dark squared bishop. And if you haven't been following, I have created a playlist with all the games in the Winning in the Closed Sicilian series, and they are all broken down by a variation here. So, any questions with this particular variation, feel free to check on the playlist. So, here, Rodriguez responds in the most uh, principled and correct fashion with d6. We already showed in the previous games why knight d4 is incorrect. So queen d2. And here we see an early queen maneuver by Black here. And basically the idea is just to put a lot of pressure on the c3 square and kind of holding back on castling a little bit. Um, and trying to curtail White's aggression in the position. Uh, these type of moves usually seem to be a little bit superficial. In my experience of looking at games, for instance, they look, solid enough, but usually there's more important moves that can be done in the position, and usually there's some type of weakness that you can put your finger on to kind of exploit a move like that. Let's see what happens during the game. So queen d2, queen a5, knight f3. Ljubojevic um, plays this move, blocking the f pawn, right? And the reason is he wants to keep this diagonal open for his dark square bishop. Notice now with the queen on a5 that the d6 pawn is unprotected. Usually, of course, we want to keep that open. And usually like a move like knight ge2 is played. We've also discussed the move knight h3, or with the same idea of keeping the f pawn free and available to advance. However, um, Lubo has another plan here, knight f3, and that's the important part, is that you have a plan in the position. Knight d4, castle, and now bishop d7. And now simply bishop f4, and we can see the realization of this plan. He simply moves the bishop again and attacks this pawn. Queen b6. And now we have to address the obvious move e5. Now the idea on e5 is just to simply take here. Knight takes d4. And if e takes f4, then knight b3. Again exploiting the early queen maneuver there. So after knight takes d4, then c takes d4. Knight d5. Queen takes. Bishop takes, and now you have this check to worry about. So rook c8, and then simply bishop b4, attacking um, the e6 square. And then of course Black would have to do some awkward maneuver to protect this pawn. The other option is, of course, taken with the E pawn. Same thing, knight takes. I mean, knight d5, queen takes, bishop d2, queen d2, bishop d2. Again, same threat, rook c8, and then again, knight f4, attacking the pawn from this direction. So, due to the pawn structure, White has a superior endgame here. Right, he's not overwhelmingly winning, but he has the better chances going forward into the ending. So instead of the move e5, Rodriguez chooses to move queen b6, attacking this pawn right here and protecting here. Rook a b1. Instead of compromising the pawn structure, simply maneuvering the piece, moving the piece over. It's better. Rook c8, rook f e1. This prepares the move e5, knight e7, e5. Okay. And notice the flexibility in White's plan is he's not going for this exchange of bishops anymore, right? But he's concentrating on the e5 push here. Bishop to c6. Knight e4. Bishop takes. Rook takes. Knight takes. Bishop takes. And now d takes e5. Bishop takes. Bishop. Rook takes. Castles. Okay. Now again, when we talk about committal pawn moves, we can see now that the dark square bishop is removed. We see this weakness around the king here. And now h4. Okay. Idea is just to simply undermine the king side position. Knight f5. c3. Keeps pieces off of there. And now h5. Again, very committal. Right, stops the immediate h5 from white, but look at the constellation of pawns, right? And you have a light square bishop. So sacrifice is looming in the future. Okay. Rook b e1. This is what I was talking about earlier. How, or actually in other videos, where instead of making a committal pawn move to defend this pawn, you defend it with the piece, because the piece can always be shuffled around, and that's what you see here. So the rook b e1, you see this pawn is defended, and there's no permanent weakness here. Say for instance on a3, because this pawn was moved earlier. Rook b e1, rook f to d8. Excuse me. Whoops. d8, a3, and now this move queen c7 is played here. Okay. And now just take a mental note how all of the heavy black pieces are hanging out over on the queen side. And you have three of white's pieces hanging out on the king side, and the queen ready to join in. Now you have bishop takes h5. And f6 is played. If g takes h5, then simply rook takes f5. E takes. Queen comes in. King f8. And this rook on the e file just makes it easy for white to just keep basically to keep black in like a whirlwind situation where you can keep constantly threatening him. King G8, Rook E7 with this threat here on F7. So the queen has to relieve itself of its duties. And now you have two rooks versus a queen, but it's not enough compensation in this position because there's too much pawn weakness in the black position. So bishop takes h5 and now f6. Rook takes f5. G takes f5. Rook takes e6. Rook d6. Queen e2. Rook c d8. Rook e7. Rook 8 d7. And then bishop f7 check. King f8. Rook e8. Check. King g7. And then simply rook g8 check and black resign. If the move king takes f7, then this is deadly right here. Queen h5 check, king g7, king g6, h5, g5, and then rook g8, which is winning. Only defense is to bring the rook here, and then you just up material. So another great game, 30 move game by Ljubojevic in the bishop 6 bishop e3 line. And again, what we could take from that is that you have to be flexible. And here you can see that even though the setup was similar here with this move, to play this move bishop h6, we saw that with black delaying this development of the knight on g8, he just simply switched his plan with this move queen h5, leaving the d6 pawn vulnerable. Simply just switched the plans and just prepared for the central advance. And then he got the bishop traded off anyway via e5. And then by the time black did get a chance to castle, his king side was notably weakened around the dark squares. And this led to the sacrifice on h5. And then nice follow-up by the great tactician Ljubojevic. And that was the end of that game. So again, that's another one in the books in the closed Sicilian. And again, please check my links below, like, subscribe, and all of that. And I'll be seeing you shortly on the next video.